go and fail, see what happens. Like, you probably won't, or maybe you will, but you learn from it, and like, that's okay. I think that best is having that like conversation. I can't tell you why you're the right fit for it. I know why I asked you, but you have to come to terms with, no, like, I am the right fit. And everybody feels that. Like, everybody feels that, like, oh, this is a weird space to be in.
Right. This is uncomfortable.
Well, it's uncomfortable, and it's not uncomfortable that helps grow all kinds of stuff.
If you had to give, I don't want to say tips and tricks, but, you know, we were talking about it the other day and how many new recruits we have to onboard here and certify here. And we're looking at massive amounts of paramedics coming in the next few years because base hospital covers 6 services. So to all those new individuals, do you have any advice? Do you have any advice, brand new? They don't know yet about this well-being piece, and I really do hope they're supported in whatever region they work in. But do you have a piece of advice for these new guys coming into this really challenging profession?
Yeah, so we get an opportunity to meet with all the recruits, and we do it early on in the orientation. I think it's a lot of the same. You have to be here for the right reasons, and so I just like filmed, I guess it's part of the packet, and we added, you need to, like, it's a really supportive service. Your peers are gonna, they will help you learn, they'll help you grow, they'll help you work through some of the things you're going to do, but you need to be prepared. And so controlling the things you can control. And I know, like, there's, I remember in my preceptorship, I remember learning this, controlling the things you can. And I know that it's a really good learning piece is you have your bags and, you put your zippers in the middle. So I know there's some people that do that. And I learned that from my preceptor. And the reason
it's like a break.
Well, once that, but it's like,
no, there's not, you can still get in.
Everything can be chaos, but it's one of the things you can, so full of things you can control. So be on time, like, introduce yourself. Like, so that's what you hear. Like, they're, your peers, especially over the last couple of years that have worked through COVID, that have been onboarded through COVID, that we've onboarded like almost 300 new paramedics into the system. We've doubled the size of our new paramedics that are there. And so introduce yourself. Develop like your colleagues. Like, if this is your career, you're going to be here for 25, 30 years. Like, get to know people. They're going to be your best support system. And they will be really supportive, but they have very high expectations of you. So understand you should know your directives when you're at it. So if they're having to help support you on something like that, that's not something you learn in the middle of a call.
No.
And what we do in York, or where the hospitals are, or like some specific policies, those are certainly things that are more complex, challenging, and one-off. They will absolutely help you, but being prepared, being on time, like knowing where the base is, like, those are all things that that I would say from a tips and tricks, and really understand what your why is. Why are you here today? Like, why is this your career path? Why are you here with this service? Why are you, like, there's lots of other opportunities that are there, but like, really understand your why on your first day and visit that from time to time throughout your career. So that will help get you through good days, bad days. Understanding your why is the best thing that you can do, and you are going to make tons of mistakes going through that. Learn from it. And so don't cover it up. Those are the things that are the absolute worst. If you leave a call and you're like, I don't know what just happened. That was really hard. That was really stressful. I did not do what I was supposed to do. I couldn't remember. I froze. We can work with all of that. The base hospital will work with all.
Yes.
The ministry and the regulator will understand. What we can't work with is leaving there and, oh my God, I need to get my directive book out or my DLS standard, and I have to rate my EPCR that looks like the standard and not what happened.
Covered up.
And so we've done a lot of work over the years around just culture. And a just culture doesn't mean you can do whatever you want and you get away with it. A just culture is really, how do you, we all make mistakes. Systems are incredibly complex, but it's how we build that. And so you're way better off saying you don't know, or you don't know what to do,
or I made a mistake,
or you made a mistake, than just like making a guess. Like, these are some of the things that that I would say, like, tips and tricks, and they're just like I don't know, in my opinion, like this is the same stuff I teach my kids. Like,
Right.
so like whether you're a new paramedic, these are just like life success approaches. Like just be humble, like figure it out. And it's okay to like make a mistake. That's not the issue. The issue comes when you compound your mistakes with the sit-ins. That's where I was worried.
Right. Speaking of the just culture piece, this has recently come up in our world. Do you want to speak to your thoughts on it? Because there's been you made some changes based on just culture within our group.
It is a key concept, and you're absolutely right. Like, it doesn't mean I just go out and do whatever I want, be reckless, but people don't think accountability is part of it. It is. It has different frameworks, right? And the vast majority of people, we're fallible. We will make mistakes, and accountability is built into it, because people don't drive to work saying, I'm going to kill someone today.
Yeah.
That's a very rare and unusual circumstance. We're working with complex systems, like you said.
Yeah.
But if we don't work in a just culture, we know they're not going to work, and they can't fix something
Exactly.
unless you report and come forward, and we focus on the system issue.
Yeah.
So that's why we've done a whole push for this as well.
The whole idea, for on our end is to make sure that everyone feels comfortable calling us.
Yeah.
There's not the judgment piece. There's not, don't worry about the what if.
Yeah.
It's, what happened, let's talk through it. And because there's so many things that we bring, so issues that are a little bit bigger, we always collaborate together. And that's important to us because, what I think happened on that call or my perception of it might be different than his. And so when the 8 of us talk about it, it's amazing. It's amazing what we can dissect in that situation. But the reality is the end goal is to make sure that they're safe enough. That's that word again.
Yeah.
That they can call. So if I'm on call on Wednesday, they're going to call. They're able to say, they're going to say whatever they need to say.
Yeah.
I froze here. I'm confused in the moment. I didn't know if I should give this one or that one. And I feel safe telling you. So we can deal with it if it is an issue that affects the patient care and their outcome, but also so that we can use that as a way of improving their confidence and competence clinically. And if that happened to you, could it have happened to someone else? Is it happening to someone else? And then that's when we bring a system into it. We're like, okay, hold on. Maybe we need to adjust next CME to address this issue.
Yeah.
And it's just, we want them strong and confident.
Yeah. No, it's, one thing that's been really good in particular with the relationship with CPE, there's very much like a ton of alignment in this. One of the other things too is, so certainly in my career on the management side, we've had complaints and investigations and really serious like allegations, and we've had to make some really serious decisions around employment and things like that. And we've shifted a lot. So we have what we call an outcome committee. In that I found when I first sort of came into more of like a senior leadership role, it was, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to do, like, why is my decision on the outcome the only one that's important? Because I think there's a lot of folks when they say, hey, this is what the allegations were, this is our investigation process, these are all the things that we went through, and this is on a balance of probabilities. And then we usually thank the folks that did the investigation, and then there's a group of in our service, it's our commanders, our deputies, we have HR there, and the chief, and it's like 9 people talking about the outcome and what we should do, and asking a lot of like really deep like questions. And the one thing that always comes up, and this is what these are the 2 things I think about, is, that patient that was impacted was my family member. How would I feel if I was the family member of that? And then the other thing I always think about is, have we put the things in place where do we feel confident that this same issue and the same paramedic would be the same outcome? And those are the ones. So one thing that I think about is if there's a lack of accountability or lack of openness around talking about it, or openness around improving from an adverse event, I don't feel comfortable and I don't feel safe that the same thing is going to happen to the next patient.
Right.
And so and I know that that's a scary thought around like the employer doing those things, but we use a very reasonable, like, would you like your family member to have the experience with a paramedic that has a life-saving capability in their hands? They're going to make a decision the next time around that could impact the life safety of your loved one. Like, that's what it comes down to. And I think when you dive into it, most people would be like, huh, like, I don't want paramedics coming to my house that are going to harm my people. And so it's very rare. Like, we do 100,000 calls in New York. We do over 100,000 calls a year. There's maybe a couple that have like a really serious outcome, and then we investigate and we find. And so 99.99% of the staff that are there have that competency, they have that skill, they have that engagement, they have that like learning mentality that they will be really safe and have a really good predictable outcome. And then there's some in any profession that maybe aren't on there. And I think it's around having an approach that's reproducible, that takes a lot of different perspectives in place. It's not one person making a really like big decision on the outcome of one of the employees. And I think it's like a really difficult thing to assess, but I think it's hard. The other thing that I've always found hard is that if someone has had an experience where they have experienced some type of disciplinary process, I would love to be able to go into, hey, this is what happened. This is what we considered. This is all the pieces of evidence that were there, and use this to help your decision making in the future. The reality of working in the labor context, that doesn't really occur like that, unless it goes to like an arbitration and it's a full hearing. You actually get to see all the evidence, and that's something that is a big challenge. That's one of the things I would love to explore. But and then for emerging leaders, especially as you start to oversee the work of others, read arbitration outcomes. Like, look at how the law sees. And I know there's a podcast from one of the gentlemen in Ottawa. I think it's called Critical Levels. He had a guest who was actually one of my previous. He's a lawyer now, but he's been taught at Centennial, Robertson. And they did a breakdown of the Hamilton case in which the two paramedics were found guilty of the failing to provide the necessities of life. And what was really interesting is when you read the report of that judgment, it's not how paramedics, maybe at a station talk about it. It's not how the base hospital group talks about how a call. It's not how, the leadership team of a service talks about the call. It's about how this is like brass tacks. This is how the law saw this case.
Yep.
And the actions of like the paramedics within that. And so it is very different and it's very interesting. And so arming yourself and understanding how other bodies see your work and not just your peers is also really important in understanding career longevity. The other thing, so I had it was a friend of a friend, and their son started paramedic school, and goes, is there any tips? Pay the most attention in your medical legal training, because that is the one that is going to help you navigate some of the most challenging cases, and it will help you keep employed. It'll help you keep safe the most. And that's like the one thing for a new paramedic student is soak up as much as you can in that space.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of emerging themes that I've gotten from all this that, correct me if I'm wrong, that at the beginning of your career, you didn't aspire that you saw yourself as the chief, but you're like, I'm going to control everything I can to learn as much as possible, to get as much as I want out of this career, because that's my why, to see how far I can go. And you keep saying the same thing, just learn as much as you can and have that come within, because you never know where it's going to lead.
I mean, and it's hard. Don't say no to an opportunity, especially if it makes you uncomfortable, like totally. And there was so one of the things I did, I think it was around 2016 or 2017. I actually left paramedicine and I worked in our social services area as a senior policy. So, I was overseeing policy development in children's services, early childhood. Like it was, and it was one of our previous like chiefs. I was like, I got this TFT. It's just for a year. I'm not getting enough exposure to some policy work. And I'm not going to take the job. And he was like, no, you'd be dumb not to do it. He's like, try it. And so taking that lead, and it's like that I made a lot more sort of like personal connections and networking, but I got exposure to a skill set that there wasn't really a lot in the paramedic service, and being able to see intergovernmental relations with a different ministry, not just the Ministry of Health, with a couple different ministries, and being able to go and get that exposure and political writing, and being able to do that. I wasn't getting enough exposure to that. And so that's one thing in our space. We have one paramedic now that he's in a temporary role in the CAO's office in corporate I can't recall, I'm going to butcher his title, but it's really around process improvement and things like that. And so I think wherever the learning comes from, just taking an inventory of it and being involved, get involved. say yes. And then, then you gradually over time, you start to look at things you can say no to, or, hey, like now, I've participated in a few mentorship programs where I've been the mentee, and now I've been through a few cycles where I'm the mentor. So, hey, there's opportunity. So maybe like, yeah, it'd be cool for me, but find someone on your team or someone on your team that would be really good, and have really good chats, like get other people involved in some of these spaces. As the chief, I'm not there. I'm not at the front line. I'm not like guiding the paramedic. I'm not even guiding the leaders that guide the leaders anymore. It's just setting the stage and working through others. And like, that's the biggest, my opinion, one of the hardest skills to build. So especially like I always saw myself, I was a really sharp, really good paramedic. That's not my job anymore. And so, I have to find ways to be successful or to help the success of more people than just going and just doing the job itself, right?
So as you support these individuals taking opportunities, how do you address the why me?
Mm.
And I don't want to, we sort of colloquially say or overuse the imposter syndrome wording, but truly it's why me? Or why should I? Why would they pick me?
Yeah.
How do you balance that? So you have some emerging leaders or people who want new opportunities, and I want to do that. Why would they choose me? And how do you navigate within your team an approach to help them?
Yeah, it's in a team dynamic, it gets really challenging. The reality is there's only so many opportunities. So it's around really trying to align the ones that have the best. Maybe alignment for the outcome to make the team better or the team stronger. I find that like the coach, like if I'm having that conversation, I'm like, oh, I'm not ready. Tell me why you're not ready.
Right.
And then let them go and talk themselves out. Like, well, maybe I am ready. Like, I'm worried about this. Okay. Well, everybody is. Like, it's there. You haven't had that experience yet. You haven't tried it. Like, go and fail, see what happens. Like, you probably won't, or maybe you will, but you learn from it, and like that's okay. I think that the best is having that like conversation. I can't tell you why you're the right fit for it. I know why I asked you, but you have to come to terms with, no, like I am the right fit, and everybody feels that. Like everybody feels that. I'm like, oh, this is a weird space to be in.
Right. This is uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable, and it's not uncomfortable that helps grow all kinds of stuff. So there's some of it is around new experiences, but one thing we haven't really even chatted about is around how has like the approach to DEI shifted our workplace, or our understanding of DEI. And the reality is it's just not something you can do on every other day, and recognizing some people had more of a voice than others historically. And how do you look at that, and how do you develop your best team, and how do you make your service reflective of the community you serve, and the leaders within your service reflective of the rest of the service. And I think, so some of those questions come into that, and some really important conversations. And it's like, no, like you're an excellent leader. You've done all this, you've done this, you've been part of this. This has been your growth, and you're a woman. You're some other intersectionality. You're like a person of color that's been underrepresented in the leadership rights.
Yeah.
Having those uncomfortable conversations and saying like, yes, you come from some type of intersectionality that hasn't been well represented. That's not why you're here. You're here because this has been your career path. This is where you've grown. These are all the things that you've done to get yourself ready to be the best person for the job. That other stuff, it just really shows that, others who are, I don't see anyone that looks like me in these leadership roles. Why would I try? Now you're that reason for others.
Yeah.
You're there because of your own merit and things like that. And ensuring that people understand that, ensuring that like sets the stage, because it's ultimately not. And that's the other thing too. And this is the one thing that there's always been in paramedicine. There's a lot of chat. There's a lot of time at the station, in trucks, at the hospital, and ultimately like your why is yours. And so, how other people feel about your promotion or how other people feel about some of your decisions, that's for them to figure out.
Right.
Like that's for them. If they want to ask some questions, that's for them. But ultimately, following your career path and some of those things, like that's for you to build, and that's yours alone. For some people, it's really hard to not listen to that.
Yes. And I think how it translates to paramedics is, just to give you some insight. So we'll have, say there's some sort of recruitment going on. Let's call it for superintendent E-list. And you're having these conversations on purpose with your paramedics, saying, have you ever thought about this? You started to open and unpack this package of what ifs and opportunities, and you wouldn't believe the amount of times, no, like, no, I can't do what you do. You absolutely can do what you can do. And so looking at the why me, and that's really important, because they're each individually so different, but could contribute. And that's the bridge that is sort of tough to get them over. So,
and sometimes it is, and sometimes it takes, it's funny. I never, like, my first day as a paramedic, it's funny now. So I'll try to be conscious and go eat lunch where we have the new recruit classes.
Yeah.
And they kind of listen to them, and they all want to go on the SRU special, like this.
Yeah.
I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, that's a really good aspirational goal.
Yeah.
You have yet to work your first day as a professional paramedic and learn and to grow. But I think back, I mean, I probably was that person. I was there. I was like, I want to be an ACP, whereas like I hadn't even really touched a patient as a PCP. And so your goals do shift over time. And I never thought management was my pathway. But then when a door opens, then you look at, oh, this actually really aligns with my why. Like this, there's such an opportunity to get really good job satisfaction. I love being an operations superintendent. Like you are in the 911 system, so you still have an opportunity to access some clinical type calls, but you're helping your crews get what they need to do their job better and to feel good about it. And so, I think that's, I mean, I guess that really is all encompassing. Like, what is your why, and how do I help you get there?
Yeah. Does this align with my why?
Yeah.
That's good.
It's not for everybody. Management is definitely not.
But I could use that as an example. But it could be SRU.
It could be anything.
It could be CP. It could be. We have so many programs in New York that we talk to these paramedics about. Because we want them to be engaged, and we want them to be excited to do the work that they do. And some of them have incredible qualities that we don't want to lose out on. Like they need to be exposed, and they almost need an olive branch sometimes.
Some people just need like an encouragement, right?
Yeah.
To quiet the voices in their head that tell them, like I'm not, oh, I can't do that, or not.
We appreciate 800 of us.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to feel like you can stand out.
Yeah.
Right. So when you get an olive branch, and then you're like, oh, maybe I could. So, and that's where you start to see, so in my case, my platoon start to evolve, is when I start to see, oh, I have these 4 did IMPACC this year, and these are ACP now, and this is the SUB list, and this is the SRU list. And you sit there and you reflect on a year, and you think, oh,
yeah,
there's a lot of growth that happened for them.
Yeah.
And that is awesome.
Well, and when you have that alignment, you feel good. Like everything starts to come together. And actually, it's funny you bring up IMPACC. So IMPACC is so it's improving patient access to care in the community. So this is one of the models of care that we submitted for through the ministry. And we've, over the last year and a bit, so we've had two cohorts go through, and it's been really well supported in that. So we took, right now it's been some advanced care paramedics. So we've done 2 cohorts of that. They go basically back to school. It's basically all physician-led learning. They get a ton of exposure to more advanced assessment, a lot more around chronic disease management, primary care delivery, mental health delivery, and in operations, we didn't change anything. They essentially get a 911 call. They go to the call, and if the patient fits some criteria, they do more assessments. They do point-of-care blood work, urinalysis, a whole bunch of other tools, and they actually start a really good maybe treatment pathway. And so they connect with the online medical control through the base hospital doc, and we've been safely discharging patients. So it was a really interesting program if you look at it from a industry organizational behavior perspective, in that it is very different approach to patient care than paramedics have been trained, and even like an identity piece. So going through, but the job satisfaction has been incredible. And so it's been a very challenging program, and certainly there's a lot that our service needs to learn and to be able to connect on. but it is very fundamentally different than these folks have been exposed to in terms of learning and training in the past and operationally. So that's a really, like, in and of itself, the one thing I heard over and over, like, their identity as a paramedic is now, like, is shift. And so in the past, they would go to a code 3 call, and it's like a generally unwell. And they're like, well, okay, you're vitally stable. You know, you probably have an involving pneumonia. We'll take you to the hospital. We'll take you to the emerge. Now they're able to kind of do some more interventions. They can start antibiotics. They work with the doc. They leave the patient there, and they don't have a family doctor. Well, we're working on how do we connect them with the family health team so that they, we're not taking them to the hospital, which is good for the system, but that's not the main intent of this program. The main intent is how do we better align paramedicine with the rest of the healthcare system? And one thing we're finding as we're working through it is how we go about and how we delivered, paramedic services for the last at least 20 years. We have to shift that. And so that's really that's a big change management piece. So instead of having a big chunk of patients that really all we do is we show up, we know we're not doing what they need. We're just going to take them to the emerge where they're probably not going to get the best type of care that they need for their issues. We can maybe, shift how we look at paramedicine. And so this is coming, and it's like, I'm all in. I think this is the way to go. This is the way that paramedicine aligns with the healthcare industry and everything that it could be. This is the way that we align with some of our partners. And ultimately, at the end of the day, like the patients or the people who live in our community, they have what they need. And so my role in this is how do we there are certainly some labor pieces we have to figure out. There's certainly some ways in which we deliver this work that we have to figure out and how we normally work. But yeah, no, I'm all in on this. I think so.
How proud are you of their ability to adapt to this? Because you talk about a changed mindset. We were talking about paramedics that were on the ambulance one day doing this, and now not only are they doing something different, but they also might have to do this.
Yes.
And so can you speak to how you feel about how these two cohorts adapted?
It's so our first cohort was, we really focused on our clinical. So we have clinical practice paramedics, clinical practice lead paramedics. We have clinician educator paramedics, and then we had some of our community paramedicine that went into our first cohort. We knew, so we made a lot of changes to how our leadership model was structured over the last few years, and knowing that we had a number of models of care that were going to be coming down the line. About 5 years ago, we really tried to establish, how do we have folks in our system that can help prepare the rest of our team for these significant changes in how we're approaching patient care as paramedics. And so there was a lot of nervousness, a lot of hesitation, a lot of concern from this group. We did kind of push them into it, which is something you never really want to do. You want folks to be able to say, you know what, I want to get all this information. I want to get into this program. A lot of them are they were happy to do it. They wanted to go, but there was just a lot of uncertainty in being able to do it. And so we got them through. It was a very stressful course on them. I'm so proud of that first group in particular, because they've formed how we then do this in operations.
Yeah.
The second group was, who wants to do it? And so we got really engaged folks that really wanted to do it, with a ton of learning from the first group and how we deliver the content, who was delivering the content, how we were doing it, how we were putting them in operations. And I was actually I happened to chat with one of the folks that was coming through headquarters, switching over to truck, how it was going. And he said this was amazing. This was the best, the most fulfilling. And he told me the story of this call he did that was very similar to his. So his parents were new Canadians. They immigrated here in Canada. So then, fast forward, he's doing this call with his patient. His patient was having an issue with, I think it was renal colic. And so the patient's really worried, new Canadian, he doesn't have medical coverage. It's going to cost him thousands of dollars to go there. He was able to initiate the care, and he was able to go and put the patient at ease, do the blood work, do all that stuff there. And he's we left them after about an hour, and the guy's pain was gone. They had a really good sort of working diagnosis and next steps. And he's so for me, that was one of the most fulfilling days. It wasn't a multi-trauma MCI. It was someone with a kidney who had a lot of pain and wasn't feeling good. And so part of it is recognizing one of the frustrations for paramedics is they do a ton of low acuity stuff.
Yeah.
We're not trained on that. We don't have exposure to that. So giving them more tools, more things to do, certainly it's going to be as stressful to like shift our mindset and to like get this level of knowledge and competency there. But now we've seen with our first 2 cohorts, and then this program is woven through our service's first ACP cohort. They will essentially graduate and start working as ACPs with this IMPACC knowledge and this IMPACC skill set. So certainly like we have a ways to go. It is not all rainbows and unicorns. Changing management never is, but really trying to learn as much as we can and to apply it to the next cohort, and try and go back and, you know, listen to some of the conversations we didn't listen as deeply to.
Right.
It is the future. And we, not only is it, like, in my opinion, when you see what the healthcare system needs and how this aligns with it, but a couple of years ago, we did some work where we engaged all the paramedics in our system. We did this like appreciative inquiry exercise. And one of the things was, you know, like in 5 years from now, you fell asleep and you woke up 5 years from now, and you were paramedics working in the most engaging, the most having the most opportunities, delivering the best care in the community. What would that look like? But in that dialogue, we heard control. So paramedics, so having more control and understanding and seeing paramedicine integrated within the healthcare system and not off to the side as we've classically been, would be where I would want to invest my resources if I were building a service of the future. And so, you know, trying to take that alignment and bring it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. Like, paramedics are very busy. They have like high workload. So then taking that and then training them and giving them this extra knowledge and space to be able to build their competency and their confidence in doing these new things. But yeah, like I'm super proud of the service, super proud of the organization that the folks that were responsible for leading this, for guiding this, and then ultimately like the folks that have been out there just like doing these new things in a really scary way, but they've done awesome. And
what's interesting about it is when they do one of these calls and they've offered the patient or a different patient, they're talking about a call that they've done, and they're discussing it and debriefing it with other paramedics in the hospital, like in the ambulance bay. And that's where you're starting to get some buy-in. Like, oh, I did this thing, and then this is the value I got, and this is what I did, and this is doc said this, and you're starting to really like they planted the seeds of clinical being exciting again, and that's nice to see. Because it's not just about your big C test 1 and 2 calls, right?
Yeah.
These are the calls that they're sinking their teeth into, and they are low acuity. And it's nice to hear the brains think together, and yeah, it's just nice to see.
Is it always the problem was it was low acuity, or is it low acuity and didn't have an option?
Yeah, it didn't have an intervention perhaps. Like there's nothing we can do except, okay, and the twinkle bus and here we go. And now, you know, they're making little impacts, no pun intended, to each of these patients. So it's just so great. It's going to be amazing. We're doing cohort 3 this year, right? So
yeah, the end of the year, and we're getting ready for our second in-house ACP class. We have accreditation candidate coming through. So far, it's going really well. But they're doing their on-site, and we're really proud of that course too. The team that's been working on that has been so there's been a lot of work that's gone into there, and you know that's the other thing too is when we ask all of our paramedics what do you find, or when has a time you've been most engaged in the work you've done or felt the most supported? When I've been learning. So doing my ACP program, taking on a new role, doing those things, and having the support to grow in those has been some of the highlights of my career. And so how do we find opportunities to make the service better in the care that we're delivering, but also have the people that are doing this work to feel better about that? Like that's a win-win, right? So it's finding that opportunity, and it's different. Sometimes there's like some risk. Like, well, what if this doesn't work? Like, what if it doesn't? Like, it may not, right? Like,
it's definitely not going to happen if
so,
it though.
So trying to do that and finding that balance from, you know, and it's, you know, like, it's not unlike parent. Like, so sometimes, you know, your child, like, they're not comfortable with something. So do you say like, you know what, it's okay, we'll try another day, or it's like you guide. And so sometimes you have to guide it, and you know, you have to listen. And one of the really good things that there's a lot of folks in our CPLP group I have a ton of respect for, and you know, they ask really good questions. They feel safe with me. They're very open. They're, you know, so we've done all this. We've done this work, but like, what is the long term, like, what is the long-term impact? Like, how are we going to maintain this? How are we going to, create this whole additional, layer of CME requirements, the well-being, like doing new things. Like, how are we going to make sure that our people, have the supports that while they're going and trying these new things and maybe failing, that they have the, they have the right mental health supports to be able to do it. So that's good. And you don't get there without trying it. So I think that's it. So we're really, like, I'm super proud of all the folks that they, like, at our service that they kind of took the leap, and they're doing amazing work. And we're seeing things like somewhere around a quarter of like just the 911 calls, there's some kind of connection with IMPACC. And like we said, it's not necessarily the goal is to not take people to the hospital, but about half of that. So if if you look down the line in the future, if you had all paramedics that had access to the skill set where they had, better abilities to safely discharge people at home, if you were discharging 10, 15% of the folks that we were encountering over 100,000 people, that's a lot of unnecessary transport. And not only that, but then the people that are being left, those patients are getting more what they need. We're connecting them with family health teams. And like, so that is, like, in my mind, that isn't, it's not just around expanding the skill set or expanding the scope of paramedics. It's making sure that they have the tools that they need to really, support folks, in the community. So yeah, certainly some things to work through. Like, there's a lot of labor stuff we have to catch up with to be able to do that, where the paramedics are really fulsomely supportive, but happy to take on that fight and to be able to do that.
You recently were the recipient of the King Charles III Coronation Medal for outstanding contributions to the community.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I just got fired.
No. I was very proud. It's not my style to, for that, but I think,
but it happened.
It happened.
And I think that it's,
Yeah.
it's acknowledging your efforts,
Yeah.
As much as you acknowledge everybody around you.
Mhm.
This was their opportunity, or our opportunity, to acknowledge you. And so I was there for it. It was great. It was great. And your family was there, and that was so wonderful.
I was there, yeah.
And I think that is just a testament to, who you are, what you do, why we wanted you here, and why you're the leader for all of us. And I think that's amazing.
Thanks. I mean, I know there was a couple other folks in our service that also received the award, and yes, it was for, and I received it from one of our MPPs. And she also spoke just around the impact of paramedics on the community. And so, I've been so fortunate to have those opportunities. But I've also, I've always tried to look at how to be well-rounded. I had, over like 10, 12 years with victim services in York Region. And that is like an incredible organization that will always be sort of really close to my heart. But just to the fact that they're supporting the folks that have been like freshly victimized by crime, and even just bearing witness to that and the impacts of that. Like, paramedics, my thing for joining that organization was, and I'm sure I'm not alone, so you go into this like horrible situation and you just kind of like leave the family. And I know that always, like, for me, like, it was a way, like, I just felt like, like, how do we, like, is there supports that are out there? And I just happen to find it. And and in my role as like deputy or as chief, like, just getting involved in other organizations like St. John Ambulance, and just what are the opportunities to strengthen the work that we do in the community by leveraging and collaborating with some of these other folks. So, I mean, I was very proud to get acknowledged, but in a room full of people that probably also deserved it. Like, it was, it was great to have my family there, as well. But, I'm very, very proud. But
I think really it's about setting an example. And I think that's why it's a big deal. It's a big deal because you set an example for all around. That's what I think.
My head's not going to fit through the door.
No, that's fine. You just stay here.
It's okay.
All right, last question.
Sure.
At the end of your career, where's the threshold to say that was a success?
No, that's a really
Was it hiring me?
Yes. It was hiring.
It was that one thing, not the all the other things.
I mean, I think my mindset, for my, like, any new opportunity or any new role, I always like to leave it better than when I got it. But one thing, at the beginning of my career, you never saw paramedics retire. Like, they just weren't there anymore. And so, having to see paramedics that are leaving with their body intact and their mind intact, certainly they'll always have some of these things stick with them and work through that. But folks that are leaving more and more, like, what's next. So my best hope for myself is that when I leave this career behind, you know, as much as I loved it, I want to have my mind and my body intact as much as possible. And what am I going to do next? And like always kind of looking at that and look, and then in looking back, I don't think it's one thing. I think it's just, you know, small pockets, small interactions, like helping, you know, like as a paramedic, you know, some of the cases that might stand out where, you know, maybe the case wasn't a good outcome, but we did the best that we could. We supported the family after the loss of a loved one. Those are the ones that stand out for me. You know, seeing some success in some like new programs that get launched. And, you know, I think it's just like the body of work, just walking away is, you know, being satisfied. And you know, that's my why. Like, and I would be happy with that. And, you know, when I leave, my mind intact, my body intact, and looking forward to what's next. I think that's, to me, that'll be the mark of success and fulfillment. It's a great question.
Thank you.
You know, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for being here.
Come back anytime.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for having me.